The story begins with a royal knight calling a woman named Alice de Roland. The royal knight tells Alice that after being crowned queen, you envied the dignity and abilities of your people. Hatching evil intentions, as well as committing a heinous crime and being sentenced to death by fire, made Alice feel that she must bear the weight of her sins. The young royal reflects on the sentence as if she somewhat disagreed with it. Alice was once the most honorable and respected woman in the empire, her husband aside. Her family's social standing and her good looks were Alice's main assets, which was also the reason she ruined her luxurious life as a queen. During this time, she caused the destruction of her family as we see her two brothers and her father. After she is executed, she is reincarnated into another world as a doctor and also has memories from her past life. She hopes to be able to repent of her past crimes by benefiting humanity and saving lives. As a doctor, we see the surgeon open the door to enter the room, and we see that it is Alice in a blue surgical suit asking about the patient's condition. The nurses in the green robes seem relieved to mention that their savior has already arrived. However, fate had other plans. We see a plane explode in midair and crash into ground. Alice asks herself what is happening. She goes to see herself in the mirror, and she is different from her appearance on the ground. As she walks toward the hallway in her white heels, like a princess in a red dress, the hall doors open and we see several people sitting at the dining room table. Her younger brother and her mother are sitting there, and they address her, mentioning her name as Alice. She is shocked when she realizes that she has been reincarnated in her past life when she was 16 years old. We see the previous 16-year-old Alice asking the king to dissolve the marriage contract between her and the prince, which makes everyone, including her father, her fiancé, and the king, completely shocked by her request. We learn that she has had a bad relationship with the prince with purple hair. She clenches her hands, placing them on the table, begging them to tell her that she is sorry, but she had to tell them, since she cannot be responsible of becoming queen, and disappeared into thin air, which means she doesn't want to become queen anymore. She mentions that the reason is that she wants to become a great doctor, and we see that she is very sure of her answer. Alice says that she wants to cure all diseases and alleviate everyone's mental suffering, and promises to do everything she can to bring peace and prosperity to the country. It's 2018, and we see the pilot of an airplane yelling to passengers that this is an emergency situation. He asks for the passengers' attention as the plane hits turbulence and they are still trying to fix the situation, but unfortunately, the plane crashes. The main engine has stopped working and the pilot asks the passengers to prepare for an emergency landing. Everyone on the plane panics, wondering how they can avoid the situation, and the pilot sends another reminder to prepare for landing, which makes Alice even more anxious. Alice shakes in fear with tears in her eyes, thinking about her future and the fact that she is bound to die in this situation, but tries to console herself that she can't die like that. The right wing of the plane is in intense flames. Alice has tried very hard to atone for all the crimes she has committed in her past life, and wonders why this is happening to her. We learn that on Earth her name was Song Ji Hyun, she was a surgeon and the youngest professor at the medical university. In fact, a surgical genius, a medical monster, and a rare genius, as people have given her countless names for her excellent skills and work. We go back to a time when she was in the operating room, where several medical devices were beeping when a nurse informed her that her spleen had ruptured and the patient's blood pressure was too low and blood was being transfused. Another says she is now doing a transfusion, but the patient has already lost too much blood. And we are shown Alice entering the operating room and asking about the patient's current condition, which makes both nurses breathe a sigh of relief. Alice asks if they are ready for surgery and learns that the patient has very low blood pressure. So, she asks Dr. Jean if he is nervous, causing Dr. Jean to flinch, answering that it simply because the patient's condition is a little severe, but Alice interrupts him and asks what their next move will be. Dr. Jean answers her by explaining that first she must cut into the abdomen, find a bleeding blood vessel inside the spleen, and stop the bleeding. Then, depending on the extent of the damage, they will discuss whether or not the spleen should be removed. Alice praises Dr. Jean for answering the question correctly and tells everyone to listen that while there is a glimmer of hope, they will have to do everything they can to patient to survive. Everyone present responds in the affirmative to Dr. Alice. Then the surgery begins, and we see Dr. Alice ask for a scalpel as she cuts abdominal cavity. She has worked very hard to save the lives of others, to atone for the crimes she committed in her past life. Old Alice, who was a queen, weeps over her present condition, wondering that she simply wants to repent of the crimes she has committed for the rest of her life. But in reality, hundreds of years ago, she was in a different time and place and living a very different life in a royal castle. We return to the reality with which the story began when a royal knight reads her death sentence for committing a heinous crime and harboring evil intentions. Reading her death sentence, death by fire, stirs the prince's curiosity. Alice is deeply saddened as she recalls it on the plane, repenting of why she has committed so many sins, for she also misses her dead family. So she apologizes to her father and brothers for her evil deeds. Processing the memories of her past life has been hard, and all these years she has struggled to effort to save the lives of others to atone for her past sins. She has finally lived to this day, as she is now certain of her doom in a plane crash. She screams as the plane heads for landing, telling herself that she cannot die, she cannot die. The vision changes from purple to black as soon as one of them closes their eyes, and literally the next second, we see a girl opening her eyes, none other than Alice, who wants to know if this was all a dream, and wants to know what's going on and why she's still alive. Looking at the setting in the king's room, she feels that it is very familiar to her. She hears a knock on the door from the butler's side as he informs her that he is entering the room, calling her Miss. Alice is wary of the word Miss, which the man pointed out to her, so she approaches the mirror just to see her face in it. The mirror was shocked to see her 16-year-old self in gorgeous peach color, wondering what was happening to her. The food looks too appetizing that the maid offers Miss Alice, and she expresses her gratitude. We see that the maid looks very agitated, trying to say something to her, but finally asks Alice if she is not feeling well, to which Alice denies it, and asks her why she is asking about it. The maid says that she thinks Alice seems a little more reserved than usual. This makes Alice realize that in this world she was Alice de Roland, a beautiful, vicious, willful and ruthless girl who did whatever she wanted and got off very easily in everything that made her servants afraid of her. Alice was to them practically a feminine monster who made them tremble with fear with her actions. As she eats the food she is served, she thinks that although she did not commit any serious crimes while she was still young, but as she grows older, she realizes this and gets a flashback. She sees a man constantly begging someone in a very pathetic state with wounds on his face. It is her father asking someone to forgive his daughter, then Alice. Alice returns from her memories as she wants to make sure she doesn't repeat the same mistakes in her life. 10 days have passed since Alice returned to her former life, and the shock of her return is slowly subsiding. But she still has many doubts about it, and since she is already there, she thinks she is going to enjoy herself. Since she has been given a new life, she thinks she should treasure it, and though she has not adjusted to her new life there, she is sure that she will definitely change and not be the monstrous Alice that she was. Then she looked at the glass she was holding in her hands. When she finishes eating, she calls for Marie, her maid. Marie is very afraid that she thinks about whether she has made Miss Alice angry. Alice asks if today is the last day of her grounding, to which the maid agrees, and Alice is pleased since she is no longer grounded and it is time for her to adjust to the setting. Alice has no idea what she did to be grounded for 10 days, but sighs as it helped her reflect on her actions. Marie recalls that Marquis said he missed Alice at lunch and informs Alice of this. Alice asks if it was her father, and Marie tells her it was, and he wants her to attend the family dinner. Alice is shocked to hear about the family dinner and asks if her father and stepmother will attend or not. She also asks about the presence of her brothers at the family dinner. Marie informs her that all but the first prince, who serves as deputy commander of the Knights of the Holy Arms organization, will be present at the family dinner, pleasing Alice as she has gone through 2 reincarnations and will finally be reunited with her family. So we see her in her white princess heeled shoes heading toward the family dining room as she approaches the huge door. She swallows her throat, nervous as she needs to enter the room, but shakes her head. Both ways to comfort herself as she does not need to delay as she is about to see her family. Finally, she opens the gate as she has missed her family for the past 30 years. Alice enters the dining room, and her stepmother and brother hail her from the other end of the dinner table. Alice is completely shocked to see them and covers her mouth with both hands. Everyone is surprised to see her acting the way she is when we see tears rolling down her cheeks, and she looks like a sweet little girl who looks even more adorable when she cries. Her father immediately gets up from his chair and asks her what is wrong, and her brother is also concerned that she is asking her the same thing. Her brother asks her if it was that hard to be grounded, and rebels that her father sided with Alice, saying that 10 days was too long, even if she did something wrong. He is Grace, the second son of the Roland family, as he comforts her, telling her not to cry or she will no longer remain beautiful. There seems to be no way she can handle her grief, but she clenches her fist, apologizing to her brother Grace on her conscience, and telling him that this time she will not let them down. Grace tells her to stop whimpering, as she is a grown girl about to get engaged. Her stepmother calls her and tries to comfort her, and Grace apologizes, telling her that he went a little overboard and that it was all their father's fault, and tells her to stop crying. She tells them that she is all right, as she knows everyone is alive, and this is not a dream. Makes her happy. She calls Grace's father, mother, and brother, telling her that she is shoving them all. Cute face with tears of happiness rolling down her cheeks. This confuses them all as to what Alice really wants to tell them, so they ask her, wanting to know exactly what it is about and if she's not feeling well. Alice apologizes to her father for her previous actions and bows her head to show her seriousness. Her father tells her to forgive him for being abrupt, but she interrupts him by admitting her mistake and saying that it's okay. She knows she must have caused him a lot of trouble and would have thrown away something valuable or gotten angry at the servants. She is grateful that she hasn't committed any serious crimes yet and wants to make things right in time before she makes a terrible mistake. Her father thinks about how his child has changed so suddenly, and he finds it very strange how Alice looks at the moment. We are then shown the shining royal mansion, where Alice tells Marie that she will do the rest of the housework. This really bothers Marie, and she assumes that Alice might get hurt in the process. Alice is all cheerful, saying that she won't get hurt and is more comfortable doing the housework alone. Since Marie is usually very busy, Alice tells her to go down and do other things. Marie is in a state of dilemma as she cannot understand what Alice is trying to do and wonders if Alice is the same housewife she used to serve because of her sudden change in behavior. But then she corrects herself as she knows that no one else can possess the same beauty as Alice. Alice suddenly realizes something when she interrupts Marie and with her charming smile, thanks her for the cake, mentioning the cake as very delicious. This is the final nail in the coffin lid for Marie, as she now feels as if she is falling off a cliff, unable to understand such a drastic change in Alice, but then thinks it may be after last night's family dinner. Alice has sincerely apologized to all the servants she used to mock, and so Marie thinks that since Alice is always smiling these days and even asks the servants about their health and well-being, everyone thinks there is something wrong with Alice's head. Something is wrong. But since yesterday, when Alice found out about Han's mother's illness, she has sent them some medical supplies to help them. When she heard about Miley's pregnancy, she gave her gifts and even went personally to deliver medicine to the maid who was sick. Marie wonders if an angel has inhabited Alice's body, and if so, she begs God never to leave Alice's body in extreme despair, hoping that their young mistress can remain good-hearted forever. We see Alice sitting in a room writing a letter with an ink pen, as she soon realizes that time has flown by very quickly. So, she gets up from the chair she was sitting in, and we hear her footsteps in the hallway. As she visits her father, opening the door to his room. She has brought him a cup of tea, since her father has been working hard during the day, and so she tells him about the tea she made for him to relax a little. She sets the cup down, and it looks very appetizing. Her father can't stop looking at the cup of tea, so she asks if something is wrong with her. Her father laughs, telling her that he just never thought he would have the opportunity to drink tea made by her daughter. Alice heard in 3rd grade that Song Ji Hyun has no parents, so her mother told her not to play with her. But even as an orphan, Song Ji was quite outstanding in her studies, as she received excellent grades in her subjects. At that time, Alice could not respect her parents, even if she wanted to. So, Alice asks her father if he liked his tea and thinks to always stay close to her father. Her father is completely mesmerized by the tea, exclaiming that it is delicious, and asks her about how she made the tea, since even the tea in the palace is not so delicious compared to the tea she made. Alice is very happy and tries to say something, but can't say anything but me. Her father asks about it, and Alice recalls a time in her past life when she spent a lot of time learning how to make tea to get the prince's attention. She cannot tell her father about it, however, and says that she learned about it a few days ago. Just for fun. She tells her father to take care of herself and that she will take a vacation, causing her father to ask if she is going to leave so soon. Alice tells him that she will only interfere with his work there, and so her father tells her to keep working hard, and he will see her at dinner. Even her father thinks about how Alice has suddenly turned into such a different person, how it is a little unsettling, sipping and enjoying the tea Alice has made, as this cup of tea was more valuable than any gold, silver, or gems he had. Someone in the room is studying with a stack of books on the table. We see the man dipping the tip of his pen into the inkwell and then writing something on the paper. We see that it is Alice who thinks she still has 10 years to execution, as she needs to remember all the big events that have happened so that she can be ready in case anything happens. She remembers that her second brother died during the second Klin expedition. His stepmother died because of a serious illness. Because of a rebellion instigated by the family, Tristan, her Roland family, was completely destroyed, her father was executed, and her older brother was executed for covering for her. During the first Furnace expedition, the entire army of the Furnace expedition was wiped out because of an unknown contagious disease, and the present emperor was infected and died from the disease. The king, Mr. Duchess Hubble, died of advanced Parkinson's disease. After the end of the Wedge War, 3 towns in the southern region were blockaded due to an outbreak of smallpox coming from the eastern region, and the total death toll was over 70,000. Alice knows it was all because their knowledge of medicine was too backward, and who could have known the disease would decide the fate of the country. She continues to write when we learn that 100,000 people have died because of the epidemic in Londo, the capital of Puglia. Alice wonders if she can save the lives of the people of Londo with her medical knowledge. She believes that although she is only a surgeon and her abilities are limited, she can still help a little. She decides to take the time to discuss the matter with her father, and after figuring things out, she continues to work as a doctor. She has a vague sense that she is missing something, and the next moment the pen falls out of her hand as she realizes something very terrible. Price Link and Alice's engagement was publicly announced at a birthday party in the year 283 of the imperial calendar. That same day during dinner, Roland's entire family sits together over dinner. Alice remembers that someone's birthday was in July, and there are only 2 months left as she chews her food. She is very sad as she knows that this was the beginning of the downfall of her life. Alice has been so consumed with her thoughts that her mother asks her if she is hungry. Alice denies it in a hurry, trying not to bother her even more. Her mother chuckles at this, telling her that lately Alice has been turning to her mother more often, and she was very happy when she first heard it. Her mother wonders why Elise is so depressed today and that her daughter has barely touched the strawberry cake, even though she really likes it. So, she asks Eliza again if something is bothering her. Alice immediately denies it, saying it's nonsense, and wonders if she was so obvious. Her father asks her about it, and her brother backs it up, telling her not to think about it, telling them that he will do what he can in his position. Eliza finally says that it was about the prince's birthday, making her father laugh at such a trifle, telling her not to worry, and telling her that he has already talked to the king and everything would go the way she wanted, which really shocked her. During the celebration, the emperor will announce her engagement to the prince. Her older brother Len protests against such an arrangement. His father becomes angry when he asks him what he means and whether he is really against Eliza's engagement to the prince. Len asks him if he really thinks that Alice is fit for a royal prince. And we know the answer is no. He adds to his question whether he thinks Elise is suitable for the role of empress, a role in which to act as the mother of everyone in the empire. The father yells at Len for what he is trying to say. Len politely says that as a humble citizen, he cannot oppose the emperor's will. But he is not sure that a selfish child is capable of being an empress. Grace, the second son in Roland's family, groans when his older brother asks what said to Len when he came home a month later and went back to where he had always tried to be cruel to his sister Elise. Grace knows that Elise is bound to be angry upon hearing this, and would never miss anything like this. But we see Grace smiling silently with a very warm and affectionate expression on her face. Grace is stunned as he watches with the calm mood of Alice, wondering if he is seeing his real sister or not. Alice knows that Len has always been harsh with her, and she used to hate his criticism, but she knows that Len was right and that she was not fit to be an empress. And so the engagement must be ended at all costs. Whenever she thinks about it, she remembers that the prince was also a victim of the engagement. Even though she has been punished for all the transgressions she has committed, the prince has had to endure his misfortune, despite the fact that he did not. So she has to break off this engagement and think about living as a doctor without any ties to the royal family. There is an awkward silence, and silence reigns in the room. Grace tells Len that he just got home and he should have been so critical of Eliza. Len shrugs his shoulders, saying that he was just expressing his opinion. Grace sides with Eliza when he tells her that Len doesn't know how kind Eliza has become these days, which makes Len question Eliza's kindness in a mocking tone. Grace is furious, as Len is unaware of his sister and how she has been recently. Len responds by saying that he has watched Elise for more than 15 years, and how she could suddenly become kind is like saying that the sun has risen from the west. Grace tries to object, but Len stops him, telling him not to waste his time, for he needs to get back to knighthood. Grace knows that Len himself will believe it when he sees Eliza with his own eyes, as he is always the first to doubt her. He asks Len when he will visit them again, as he has been busy lately. Len says he's been busy for a while, so he doesn't know about it. This time the Rifle Knight has been excluded from the Crims expedition, and for the time being the 2nd Squadron will lead the expedition. But if the Franco-Line Republic decides to join, the King's Rifle will be sent. So, he asks if there is any chance of him going too. Len says it is true, and the Republic will not just won't give up the way to the Black Sea. Len leaves, but he tells Grace to succeed, which makes Grace find out about this. He is told to take care of everything and everyone and not to dishonor his father's name. Grace is annoyed and says that he doesn't need to be reminded and that it is not he but Len should watch out for bullets that might hurt both sides in the war. Len chuckles and wishes him luck in his next encounter. Alice is sad and seems gloomy as she leans her face against the pillow. She is thinking of a detour as she is only 2 months away from her engagement. This engagement is happening because a year ago she fell in love with a prince and made a big fuss about it. So now she can't back out of the engagement, especially since it's an engagement to a prince. Once it is announced, even the royal family will not refuse it for fear of losing their honor. Cheerful Marie knocks on the door of her room and says she has brought her tea. Alice thanks her for the tea and tells her to put it on the table. Marie fidgets as she wants to say something to Eliza, which prompts Eliza to ask Marie herself. Finally, Marie tells her that she does not know what is bothering her, but not to worry, everything will be fine. Marie says that she has looked very depressed over the past day, and also apologizes for assuming. Elise gets out of bed and puts on her slippers. As she walks over to Marie, she praises her, saying that she has grown up now. Marie blushes at the praise as Eliza thanks her for encouraging her. Marie says goodbye and exchanges goodnight wishes. Alice knows that she cannot solve anything by just sitting in her room and worrying, and that there is only one way to deal with this situation: to face it face to face. So, she plans to speak her thoughts directly to the Emperor, with no way around it. It is the next day, and her father tells her to go, for it is time. Eliza mentally apologizes to him, as she is about to do something rather unpleasant. They arrive at the Emperor's palace, and the maid informs them that His Majesty is waiting in the rose garden. The rose garden is full of reddish-yellow roses, with the bright sun shining over them. The Emperor sits at a table and reads a book in the rose garden. Eliza enters the rose garden and bows, thanking the Emperor for the invitation like a nobleman. The emperor greets them both and asks about their well-being. The emperor orders the maid to bring them tea and tells Alice and her father to sit down. The emperor says that he has invited them because he has missed her and that it has been almost 6 months since he last saw her. Alice agrees with His Majesty. He asks if anything has happened to her and if she is all right. Eliza cheerfully answers that all is well and thanks him for his kindness. His Majesty is happy to hear of her well-being and tells her to sit down first, making Eliza to realize that Her Majesty is still the same. Elisa had no one to rely on in the palace, so His Majesty's kind words always encouraged her. Even when he was on his deathbed, he praised her as a good empress and left her to perform her duties. Soon the king passed away, leaving everyone in mourning. But, in the end, she was unable to fulfill his dying wish, and today she was there to ask for something completely inappropriate. She wonders if His Majesty is feeling well these days, as in his past life, he passed away due to a chronic illness, which means he may be ill. Eliza looks at the emperor as he talks to her father over a cup of tea. She easily understands that he is tired and smiles to hide his fatigue and that he is in poor health. She tries to remember his illness, as the royal physician said he was suffering from poor circulation, as there was no clear diagnosis. When he fell into a coma, she felt a hint of ketone emanating from his body. His breathing was rapid and deep, a sign that his coma was caused by acidosis, which fatigues his body and also causes other conditions. She tries to think of something she has been studying, and what it might have been. If she can figure it out, then she can stop the political uproar caused by the third prince. When the emperor collapsed, the emperor says that she looks a little different today, and whether it has anything to do with her behavior, since she looks mature. Eliza wants to say something, but her father interrupts her, arguing that the emperor is right, and that she has changed a lot in the last few days and has grown a lot, and goes on to talk about her affairs in the last few days. He also informs the king that everyone in the mansion has been praising her for the past few days, which has made the emperor very happy. The emperor asks if she is now making tea for him. Her father says that she does, and in fact the taste of the tea is very rich, which it surprises him every time. Now the emperor is curious, and he asks if Lady Eliza would give him the honor of trying her tea as well. Alice is amazed and replies that she is flattered, but says that she does not know if he will like her tea. The king tells him that she means it because the tea she has brewed is special in itself, and don't bother, but just brew it as she usually does. She takes her leave and says she will do her best to live up to his expectations. Eliza is in the royal kitchen when she tells the maid to bring her some oriental black and white tea along with fresh mineral water. She tries to remember what kind of tea the emperor liked. It was a taste of tea brought from the Chong tribe of the east. But the problem was that the same leaves could taste differently depending on the temperature and amount of water. She prepares the tea and serves a cup of tea to the Majesty. Majesty takes the cup and takes a sip of tea for her. He is surprised as the tea smells very rich and mentions that he also had a similar tea once brewed for him by Ambassador Chong. He praises Eliza for her marvelous tea and asks her when she learned how to make such excellent tea, and that he will have to order his servants to learn how to make it from her. Elisa thanks the emperor for his kind words, but her father tells her that she has learned to make the tea herself, and as he drinks the tea she has made, all his fatigue disappears and clears his mind. The emperor agrees with Marquis L, Eliza's father, saying that he too feels rested. and also envies the fact that he has to drink this tea every day. Elisa tries to downplay her brewing skills, but the emperor denies this, praising her again, and asks if she will visit him often to brew this tea for him, which makes her unable to answer. The emperor says that since she has given him the opportunity to taste such excellent tea, he will give her a gift. So, he asks if there is anything she would like, and rest assured, because they will soon be family and he can do anything for her. Eliza remembers that she must inform Her Majesty before it is too late. So she tells the emperor that she has something to tell him that gets their attention to her. She apologizes to her father for being late, and we see a man in black boots walking toward them in the rose garden. The sound of her footsteps gives her a grim feeling as she remembers who the man is, and clenches both fists. The emperor greets the person, and we see that it is Prince Linden, with whom he is about to be betrothed to Elise. When she sees Prince Linden, she respectfully greets him and says she is honored to be there. Prince Linden looks at her sternly and then tries to walk past her, trying to ignore her presence. Elise loved these stern looks the prince gives her. His cold gaze, his handsome face, and his polite manners. But her love was never acknowledged by Prince Linden in her past life. She always tried to please him by asking him for a cup of tea for him. But she always got a cold reception from him. Prince Linden often told Eliza to leave him alone, even if she was in the corner room. He also refrained from having Eliza waste her time trying to please him, and that he married her only because his father told him to. When she learned this, she became very angry with the prince, for, even after several attempts to please him, Prince Linden was always very cold to her. This made Elise fixate on making Prince Linden look back at her and do so at any cost. Prince Linden and Eliza are seated at the table next to King Hubble and Marquis L. When Eliza sighs that they should not have been there together in the same place, and it all her fault for being such a fool in her day. Nevertheless, her heart does not flutter as it did in her old life, as it did 30 years ago. The king tells Prince Linden that he is running late, to which he replies that a meeting with the Financial Council about the budget for the Crims expedition has taken him longer than expected. The king allows Prince Linden his tardiness, stating that it is an important problem that cannot be ignored, since the inhabitants of the kingdom have been killed on the Crims Peninsula. King Hubbles asks the Marquis about the possibility that a third nation named the Republic will enter war to cause problems. The Marquis believes that since the Republic's main forces are busy in the Dark Lands, there is as yet no sign of their movement. However, the war is almost at an end, and if they capture the Crim Peninsula, they can control the Black Sea, and then they can join the battle any way they can. King Hubble reports that he plans to send a second detachment of Romanovs and whether enough for them. Prince Linden tells us that the second detachment has over 50,000 men. So they will have enough while the Republic remains, since sending more people on the expedition strains their finances. Eliza realizes that the war is going as expected, and then she was too young to notice it. However, she also knows that the expedition will eventually fail, and the war will also take the life of her brother Chris. King Hubbles ponders what his son, Prince Linden, has said, but then says cheerfully that they were chatting about boring things in front of the young lady present there, referring to Eliza, to which she respectfully denies, declaring that she has no trouble, and tells them to go on. King Hubbles asks her if she has any special ideas about the expedition that make Eliza try to deny, but King Hubbles wants to know her thoughts and tells her not to feel pressured. This makes Eliza think of the outcome of the war in her past life, as she asks herself how to tell them about the outcome of the war and whether they would arouse suspicion. If she tells them, they may also end up doubting her, but she remembers her brother Chris on the battlefield. She is terrified to remember it, but she denies it because she could save several lives. So, she finally responds by stating that it is only her own opinion. There are two things to be feared in this war. First, there is the kingdom of Moncel to the east, which attracts the emperor's attention. When he looks at Eliza, she is asked about her choice of the kingdom of Moncel over the Republic of Francoin. Eliza confirms her position, saying that they should be careful about joining the kingdom of Moncel to the war. Her father, the Marquis of L, tries to tell her that the kingdom of Moncel has no ties to the Crim Peninsula. Although Moncel is closer to the battlefield, they have nothing to worry about ethnic tribes in the Crimea. Also, don't forget that Moncel is an inland kingdom and has no reason to control the Black Sea, so they need to worry about the Francoan Republic. Eliza tells her father that she agrees with him about the location of the kingdom of Moncel. This confuses Prince Linden, and her father then questions Eliza about her thoughts. She mentions that it is all because the current king of Moncel is the Earl of Ingriff, who has yet to be recognized as king. So in order to gain the support and recognition of the people of his kingdom, he will support the Republicans. Everyone, including the king, is shocked to realize that Eliza is extremely important, and her point of view cannot be refuted. Eliza mentions that the kingdom of Moncel was once part of the Francoin Empire. Since they can't move their forces, they can ask the kingdom of Moncel to set up an ambush for them and in return recognize him as the rightful king. Silence reigns in the Rosary as everyone is stunned by Eliza's suggestions. The king recognizes her point of view as possible, for even he has not thought so deeply about the kingdom of Moncel. Eliza perks up, saying that the Republic will not stand still, for kingdom of Moncel is not far from the Crim Peninsula. Prince Linden asks her that since the kingdom of Moncel can send peninsula with no more than 20,000 men, does she think that is enough to defeat their empire? Eliza did not expect Prince Linden to even speak to her, for he had always treated her coldly. She agrees with what Prince Linden said, as their people cannot be defeated head-on, except Republicans and the Duchy Kingdom. However, she mentions that this is only if they fight face-to-face. She asks him what if they fight not face-to-face, but in a different formation. She mentions the Donov River and the Irk Mountains. If the kingdom of Moncel decides to strike them, they will strike toward the Irka Mountains, not the peninsula, as they can head there directly by crossing the Donov River. Eliza goes on to add that the Irka Mountains are the only entrance to the Crim Peninsula from the Romance region to the west. So, if the kingdom of Moncel captures the Irka Mountains, Prince Linden's army will be isolated, without any supplies. And if that happens, the entire expedition will be destroyed. The king is in a state of shock as he realizes that what Eliza has said is possible, and if it happen, they will immediately lose the war. King Hubbles immediately calls out to the maid and orders her to notify the chancellor that he will discuss the matter with the general the next day. King Hubbles tells Prince Linden to talk to the Intelligence Council about surveillance, for they must be prepared in every way possible. However, King Hubbles is stuck wondering how Eliza came up with such a plan, as she was not only reviewing the political position of the empire, but also the relations between the various countries on the peninsula. Not to mention that she had even considered a full-blown war scenario, leading him to wonder whether she is some kind of genius strategist. He thinks he's been wrong about Alice all along. So he turns to Marquis L, her father, giving him a happy smile and asking about how he managed to raise such an amazing daughter, making Elise blush. Marquis L guffaws, but the king asks Elise about the second thing, since she mentioned that they must be different of two things. Elisa tells her that the second thing is the illness that has shaken the king. She explains that it is very hot and humid on the peninsula, so one must beware of all contagious diseases. She knows that many people died of contagious diseases at the end of the expedition. Although she can't remember the exact one, it will help them greatly reduce the number of casualties. King Hubbles agrees and asks her to suggest some measures they can take. She tells them, first, that all men should have sufficient medication, and second, that they should observe proper hygiene. He asks if she mentioned hygiene, doubting her position, but she says that unsanitary environments cause many diseases, and they can prevent widespread diseases by using it, since she knows that the importance of good hygiene had not yet been discovered in that era. King Hubbles is very happy and appreciative of her thoughts, asking her where she learned such things. Eliza hides, saying that she has read many books on medicine and that her knowledge is very superficial, which the king categorically denies. This makes Eliza worry about whether she has spoken too much, but, on the other hand, she knows that it will help save the army men and her brother Chris. King Hubbles informs her that he will discuss her suggestions and take appropriate action. He goes on to say that if her suggestions help them on their expedition, he will award her the Britia Badge of Honor, which shocks Eliza when she hears the name of the award. This award is also called the King's Cross and is a badge of honor that carries the highest power and recognition in the empire, which means that whoever receives it will receive the title of Honorary Knight, which is the highest honor for any nobleman in the empire. She tries to explain that she has just given silly suggestions, and it is too much for someone like her, but the king denies it, saying that she is not stupid, and even the insignia will not enough if they can win the war with her help. She was about to say something, but suddenly realizes that she has brought something for him. She mentions it as a small gift, arousing the king's curiosity. It is a rare incense from the Chong people, a candle used by the king's nobles. A rich and refreshing fragrance that helps revive someone's spirit again. King Hubbles is pleased and tells her that he has indeed been very exhausted and weary lately, and he finds the light coming from the candle refreshing. He asks her how she managed to bring this for him. After listening to the words exhausted and weary, Eliza looks intently at the king's face, trying to discern him, and wonders how this could have happened. What follows is a series of conversations in which she asks if he feels exhausted even after sleep, whether he drinks more water than before, and whether he is constantly thirsty even after drinking a lot of water, to which the king agrees to all her questions. The final question about waking up at night to go to the bathroom also admits that it. Elise helps her understand what the illness is. She now learns why he went into a coma, since he was never properly diagnosed since he died from such a simple disease. It is not complicated and is treated quite easily, as it is diabetes mellitus. We learn that King's blood sugar levels continued to rise as he was untreated and suffered from stomach acidity when his blood sugar levels were elevated. He was poorly treated because the condition was undetectable at the time. Responding to King Hubble's question, she hides it by saying that she had recently read about disease with the same symptoms as his. She says she can't remember the exact name, but they say his symptoms are related to high blood sugar. She explains that sugar is an important nutrient in the body, but excessive sugar consumption can lead to similar symptoms in anyone's body. The king thinks about this and tells her that he will talk to the Baron about it, and Eliza is happy, for Sir Sven is an excellent physician who will be able to understand what it is all about. It is good that the matter of the Emperor's illness is settled, and all that remains is her engagement to the prince. So, she asks King Hubbles that she too has something to discuss with him that draws Prince Linden's attention to her with the stern look in his eyes. King Hubbles asks her about it and says she can ask him anything she wants. Eliza knows that what she is about to ask is very wrong of her, but with a stone-on heart, she finally musters up the courage to apologize to him, asking him to reconsider the engagement between her and Prince Linden. Everyone, including Prince Linden, is shocked by what Eliza has asked, which leads them to ask about what she meant by reconsidering their engagement has left her even more puzzled. She tells them that this is what she said and asks them to call off their engagement to Prince Linden. Her father is furious at her for yelling at her about her sudden declaration, since marriage is not a game and she is talking nonsense. King interrupts her father and wants to ask Eliza something. King Hubbles says her full name and asks if she really understands what demands of him, indirectly alluding to her absurd request. Eliza bows at her feet, accepting her mistake, and asks him to forgive her and accept whatever punishment seems appropriate for besmirching the honor of the royal crown. King Hubbles asks her the reason for breaking off the engagement, since she was the one who begged for the engagement, and whether she has suddenly changed her mind and her heart. Eliza tells the king that she is not worthy to be empress. She explains that although she has thought much about it, she is still a silly little girl who has thought about becoming empress of the empire. After countless reflections, she has come to the conclusion that she does not have the right to become empress, though it would have been a great honor and joy to her. She tells us that since the First Lady of the Empire would be the partner of the prince, if an unfit person like her were to become empress, it would bring the empire much humiliation and insult. She also fears that if she becomes engaged to the prince and becomes empress, she would not be able to perform her duties and might cause the collapse of the empire. She knows that becoming a surgeon is the right thing for someone like her. So, once again, she tries to ask for forgiveness, accepting whatever punishment the king wants, since she has asked for what she should not have asked for, since she had previously become very greedy for the crown and had no right to carry it, tarnishing the throne and His Majesty's generosity. Eliza seems very serious as she is on the ground begging the king with the utmost sincerity. She thinks it will be over for her and the king will be very angry with her. King Hubble tells her that she can lift her head. When she slowly lifts her head, she is surprised to see that King Hubble is not angry, but rather happy with a smile on his face. King Hubble agrees with Elise that she is not entirely wrong, and in fact, he was worried about her ability to fulfill her duties as empress. Eliza says that, of course, she is not worthy to be partnered with Prince Linden. King Hubble says that now he no longer has to worry about this, which makes Eliza cannot understand what the king means. The king says that he is very smitten with her today because she has decided to give up her dream of becoming a princess and acknowledged her shortcomings. He is very proud of her, since this is not an easy thing to do. Eliza does not want this to happen, so she says that it is not true and that she still does not like an empress, as she is still very selfish and flashy. The king rejects her plea, telling her that this is enough, and asks her age, to which she replies that she is 16. He says it is a very lovely young age, like the flower here in the garden when he plucks a rose from the plant beside him. Inhaling the smell of the rose, he says he understands her fear of the burden of becoming part of the royal family. He comforts her by telling her that everyone in this world has flaws, and what matters is how one decides to move forward. Judging by her actions today, he thinks that in the future she will be a generous and wonderful empress if she is mindful of modesty. Eliza does not want this to happen and thinks about calling off the engagement and, looking at the prince, thinks about telling them if she hates the prince. She stops thinking about the wrong reasons and tries to be honest with the king. So, she tells the king that there is another reason she has made this request, forcing King Hubble to find out about it. With the utmost determination, she says she wants to become a doctor. Her father is shocked, calling it ridiculous when she becomes a doctor. She says she really wants to be a doctor, causing her father to sigh, not believing that he thought her daughter was behaving herself in front of the king. King Hubble, however, asks if she really wants to be a doctor and tells her that he will not forgive her if she lies. She says it is true that she wants to be a doctor. Eliza really wanted to live the life of a doctor because she missed the metal scalpel, the power of heartbeat, and the happiness of saving a life. King Hubble tells her that it will be a much harder road than she ever imagined. To which Eliza says she understands him and thinks it will be worth the sacrifice. King Hubble finds this very difficult, as he mentions that he never thought she would think about it. So, he asks her about betting on it, making Eliza question the bet. He says that she might be at a disadvantage in the bet, which causes Eliza to brainstorm about what kind of wager the king is talking about. So King Hubble turns to Eliza's father, asking him if he knew about his daughter's aspirations. Marquis L clearly denied it, unaware of it. The king mentions that becoming a physician is an honorable path, but Lady Elise knows what work a physician should do, as it would be beyond her imagination. Elise informs the king that she is well versed in the profession. In fact, she knows that there can be no one but her who understands the pain of being a doctor better than she does, and says that she believes that the path she has chosen is worth the sacrifices. King Hubble asks her if she has read these medical books for this reason. He asks her, since she is the Marquis's precious daughter, if she really thinks about becoming a doctor. He does not want to insult her life choices, but he sees that no law in the empire forbids a woman to become a doctor. Eliza says that, in fact, Viscount Lionel's daughter has become one, which leads him to ask her one last question. With an intensifying aura, the king asks her again if she really thinks she can become a doctor. Since in order to be recognized as a doctor, she must pass a test administered by the medical council. Even if she is an influential noblewoman, she won't get special treatment on the exam. Becoming a doctor is one of the most honorable professions in the empire after lawyer and administrator. It is like Earth, where doctors are highly respected and the competition is very high to become a doctor. However, this was not the case 100 years ago, until the theories of advanced medical practice became widespread, which made everyone realize the importance of public health. Many noblemen wanted to become a doctor, but to become one had to be able or wealthy. Eliza knows that the king asks her if she is capable enough to compete with others to become a doctor. So, she immediately says she can do it and wants to become a doctor to save lives. Saving lives. He asks her if she understands that if he orders her to marry a prince, she will have to follow it, regardless of her wishes, which Eliza confirms. King Hubble is kind enough, so he does not want to force her, since he thinks of her as his niece. Because he truly cherishes her, he mentions that he hoped she would become part of his family, and offers to give her time to prove her worth as a doctor. This shocks Eliza out of fear of what the king has said. King Hubble offers her a wager that if she can accomplish something more valuable than becoming a future empress, he will leave her to do what she wants without further ado. However, if she fails, she will have to follow his wishes and ask her opinion. Eliza asks him how much time she will have to prove herself, and King Hubble informs her that she has time until she is an adult, since he cannot wait any longer. Elise finds it difficult to prove her worth as a doctor for 6 months, knowing that the king wants to scare her into giving up and marrying the prince. And because he says she must prove her worth as a doctor, he wants her to not only pass the medical test, but to become a worthy doctor within 6 months. She gracefully accepts the story. She will do her best to fulfill his wish by thanking him for his generosity. The king is stunned when Eliza accepts the challenge, for he did not expect her to do so. He knows that saving lives is an honorable job, but Eliza lacks the proper stamina, which will soon cause her to give up. Also knowing that such hardships cannot be endured by the daughter of a noble family. Seeing the tense situation, the king tries to cool it a bit by saying that Prince Lyndon and Eliza have not met for a long time, forcing Eliza to say that everything is all right. But the king tells Prince Lyndon to take a walk in the garden with Lady Elise, since he has some business to discuss with the Marquis L in private. Prince Lyndon has no choice as he takes his father's orders and tells Elise to come is to hold out his hand to her. This astonishes her, for she never expected Prince Lyndon to extend his hand to her, for he always been cold to her in her previous life, but she accepts his generous offer. They could be seen walking through the corridors of the garden, making Eliza feel uncomfortable because it has been a few years, but her relationship did not end well, and it was also her fault. So she doesn't want to be mad at him for executing her. She got so caught up in her thoughts that Prince Lyndon had to ask her what she was thinking. In fact, Prince Lyndon was a victim of the relationship because he was forced to marry her, which made him miserable. What if he had been married to someone he really loved? Prince Lyndon calls Eliza by name and asks if she has say something to him. Eliza doesn't understand, so he tells her that if she has something on her mind, she can tell him about it. Eliza says that she was just thinking about the past, which caused Prince Lyndon to stop halfway during their tour. Eliza thought she had offended Prince Lyndon, so she bowed and apologized to him, causing Prince Lyndon to ask her why she was apologizing to him. Eliza responds by saying that she apologizes for everything that is indirectly related to current situation as well as her previous life decision. Eliza says that she has been hitting on him since he was young, and now he is being forced to marry to her even though he doesn't want to. Once again, I apologize to him for everything. Prince Lyndon asks her who said he doesn't want to marry her. Eliza cannot understand what the prince said, and so Prince Lyndon asks her about who told her that he was forced into this engagement, indirectly telling her that he wants to continue their engagement.